Let's talk about The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clarke, one of my most anticipated reads of 2026. And this video follows the last four Read With Me's on Thursdays. So, this is my little book club discussion. Feel free to leave comments on this video to discuss the book. And be aware this video contains spoilers because I want to discuss little aspects of everything in this book, especially the ending. So, this is your warning, and let's start talking. I have very mixed feelings about the book and very different opinions on the first half and the second half, which is mostly based on my expectations of the story. So let's talk first about them. I expected a full on murder mystery story here, where we got a killer, where we have a murder very early on in the story, and where everything in this book is about solving the case and finding the killer. But that is not the case. We have our first victim 50% into the story, which is why I liked the second half way more than the first one. That doesn't mean that I didn't like the first half, but it was a very, very different vibe. Not much murder mystery vibe, which I expected here. And I think that is the biggest problem that I have with the book. It was way more literary fiction about the publishing world, about the whole industry, and it showed a lot of problems we have in the publishing industry, which I really liked. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't what I wanted to read. So, in the beginning, we have these seven authors arriving at this island where Arthur Fletch, one of the biggest authors, was living. He is dead now. Nobody knows about this except the persons on this island. And the publisher of Arthur Fletch starts a competition now with these seven authors to write an ending to Arthur Fletcher's last book that he never finished. And they can not only win a whole lot of money, but also a big publishing deal with this publisher. So, of course, these authors are all very intrigued by this competition. It is their chance of a lifetime to start a big career, and of course, they all want to do that. We have authors from very different genres, from crime and murder mystery, like Arthur Fletch wrote, to horror, to sci-fi. We also have romance and new adult authors here. So it is very, very mixed, and I like that. The whole setup of the story was very standard for a murder mystery. So they are on this island. They have no contact to the outside world during the competition because all their phones and laptop are locked away in a safe that will only open when the competition is over. So they have 72 hours to read the manuscript of Arthur Fletch and to write their ending of the story, which is a very optimistic timeline, in my opinion. I think the whole competition should have been at least for a week, not only a weekend, because there is so much to do. They need time to read the whole manuscript, so around 300 pages. Then they need to plot their ending, which is not that easy for a murder mystery because they need to find out what were the red herrings in the plot, what should be the best ending with a plot twist that is realistic for what's already there, but still surprising for the reader. And then they need to write around 3,000 words. So, again, it is a very optimistic timeline to do that in 72 hours. I'm speaking here from the author perspective. I know how hard it is to write an ending to a story that is satisfying and perfect, or as perfect as it can be. So I understand the pressure the authors are under. And again, the whole first half of the book is about that, about their experiences with the publishing industry, especially the negative experiences and what is wrong with the publishing industry. So I liked all of that, but the whole time I waited for the suspense plot to start, for our first victim. And as I said, we had that halfway into the story, which was way too late for me. But I really liked the second half then. But before we get to that, I had a theory right after I started reading the story, and that was when we had our first POV of Kate, which was the first POV in the whole book. She is the author that hasn't published anything before. She is very young and she is already under contract with the same agency as Arthur Fletch was. So they see a lot of potential in her and also saw similarities in the writing to Arthur Fletch himself. And after that, I had the theory that Kate is either our first victim, which was the bigger possibility for me personally, or that she is our killer. So that is what I started with. And then we learned more about the other characters, about Sienna and Malcolm. They are an author duo, like V.E. Schwab and Kat Clarke here, the authors that wrote The Ending Right itself under the pen name Evelyn Clarke. And I liked Sienna. I saw potential in her. I didn't like Malcolm. He was super annoying, overconfident, and didn't do anything. So he was the face of the author duo, but Sienna did all the work. Of course, he saw that differently, but it was the case by everything we saw in this book. Then we had Jackson, the sci fi writer. I hated him. He was also super annoying. So, not the best male characters here in the book, at least not very sympathetic. It was fitting to the story. The male character I liked the most was Kenzo, the horror writer, and I didn't really had anything to say to the female authors except Sienna. We had Priscilla, the romance writer. We had Kate, I already talked about her. And we had Millie, the young adult writer. She is a super loud person and she talks a lot. So, not someone I really like personally, but I think it really fitted into the story. So it is a very, very mixed group, which was good for the competition and also gave us a lot of different views on the publishing industry. So I was interested to read about that. I was intrigued, but I really, really wanted the suspense plot to start. And we had that with the second half when Sienna died. Nobody really knows if it was an accident that she fell down the stairs or if it was on purpose and somebody killed her. So most of them think it was an accident, probably because it is easier to believe and they all wanted the competition to continue because it is such a big chance. And let's be honest, they couldn't really do anything if it was a murder because they are still on this lonely island. They have no contact to the outside world. So let it better be an accident. And the only person who doesn't want to believe that is Malcolm, Sienna's husband. He starts to investigate. He creates a whole detective personality, which was a bit eye rolling because, Malcolm, do you really think this is a life changing book idea? No, it is not. It was super standard, but it helped him to investigate the case of his wife. Not that it really helped him in the end, because he is the next person who dies. Definitely an accident here, but it was super well written how this accident was questioned by the other authors, and that for, I think, realistic reasons. So, starting with that, the tension grows. I was more intrigued by the story now that the whole murder mystery plot gets more attention and gets more important to the story. So I couldn't wait to read more. Was super investigated in the last quarter of the book. So the last read with me part, that was where the tension was the highest, where we had the climax of the murder mystery plot and the plot in general. We also had lots of elements on the publishing industry in the second half. So that was also a constant in the story, which I really liked. But the murder mystery plot was now the focus of the story. And we had twists and turns here. We had the murders coming faster and faster until there's almost nobody left on this island. And I can say I was right in the end. It was Kate. She was our killer, and I saw the reasons for it. So it made sense for me in the end that she was the one, and I liked how the story ended for her. I think it was really fitting. And I also liked how the story ended for the Arthur Fletch manuscript. Not that I liked Holden in general, but I liked his idea that they will publish the unfinished manuscript and the readers can talk about it, can create their own endings and discuss that. So that was a very cool move, and I think the best they could do. And I also liked the ending for Kenzo, and that he wrote a whole book on the events of the ending right itself. So, hiding what happened right under the nose of everyone. But I was also a little bit confused and irritated by the ending because what do you mean? All the fans of Arthur Fletch are now visiting this island and the house of Arthur Fletch. That is now an attraction for tourists. I mean, that is where many people were murdered. How did you clean the crime scene? What happened with the corpses? Nothing of that was explained. And are you not scared that some of these fans and tourists that visit this island can find some hints on what happened there? And why did we need to fit the whole mystery about the mysterious man on the island in these last pages? It felt super rushed. It was a super short explanation, and I would have preferred that to be explained earlier in the story. So, all in all, it was a good ending, but it lacked in some detail that I really want to know more of. And will we get a second book? Will this be a series of murder mysteries? There were hints in the epilogue that the authors maybe work on a sequel to The Ending Rights itself. I would be intrigued by that. I would maybe read the sequel when there will be a sequel. I don't know. But I hope you can understand now why I have mixed feelings about the book and why that has probably the most to do with my expectations that I had for the book. So please tell me in the comments what you think of the ending rights itself. I really like to discuss the book with you there. Like the video if you wanna, follow my channel. And before we see us next time, I want to tell you what we will read next in my Thursday Read With Me's. And that will be Yesteryear by Carol Claire Burke. I have high expectations here. I hope they are fulfilled. I heard a lot of good things about the book, even if it is not 100% my genre, but I am very intrigued. So we will see each other again next week with the first Read With Me here. Bye!